Hello, my name is Tom Padia. I'm the Recycling Director at StopWaste. Our official name is the Alameda County Waste Management Authority. We're a joint powers authority comprised of all 14 cities in Alameda County, the county itself, and 2 sanitary districts. Today I'm going to focus on the Mandatory Recycling Ordinance that we adopted in 2012. We'll take a brief look at why we went the route of a mandatory ordinance, the rules of the ordinance, describe our enforcement efforts as the main focus, and then we'll touch on how we've communicated about the requirements of the ordinance to the regulated community. We have a lot of content to cover in 10 minutes, so I'm going to stay at a fairly high level and not dive too deeply into details. Okay. So in 2008, we conducted a year-long, in-depth waste characterization study and found that after over 15 years of promoting voluntary recycling programs in the commercial sector, that still about 60%, 60, of the materials by weight going to landfill from the commercial sector were materials that could have easily been recycled or composted. Recycling and solid waste issues just simply haven't been high priority issues for a lot of businesses. So in 2012, the authority adopted our Mandatory Recycling Ordinance 2012-1 to be used as an attention-getting device. That's a term that our director, Gary Wolf, coined. A way to motivate action to reduce waste and support our broader agency goals of, by the year 2020, having less than 10% of materials sent to landfill be materials that could be easily recycled or composted. In other words, materials that could go in the recycling bin or the organics bin. Now, we are not looking at this as a revenue-generating enforcement effort. In fact, we don't budget any revenues from fines from the ordinance, and in fact, enforcement is a very large net expense. So we implemented our ordinance in 2 phases. It affects multifamily properties and commercial accounts. Phase 1 paralleled the state AB 341 requirements covering the same accounts and started on the same date, July 1, 2012. Phase 2 took effect last July 1st, 2014. That extends the coverage to all commercial accounts, not just those with 4 or more cubic yards of weekly garbage service, and adds food scraps and compostable paper to the list of covered materials. So, from voluntary to mandatory, what a long, strange trip it's been. We know that many businesses prioritize regulatory compliance over voluntary environmental efforts, and that solid waste expenses for many businesses and institutions are dwarfed by other cost categories such as energy, wastewater, workers' comp, health benefits, and other things. So with our mandatory ordinance, we aim to move recycling and waste reduction over to the required compliance side of the ledger. The need for this attention-getting device has been made evident by the experiences of some of our member agencies who have had a universal rollout of recycling, commercial recycling, some who have offered unlimited commercial recycling at no additional cost to any commercial garbage account, and with extensive outreach still only had about 60% subscription levels. So who's affected? Again, phase 1 was the same as the state AB 341. We had about 7,000 multifamily accounts and about 4,500 commercial accounts countywide covered. The difference between our ordinance and 341 is we define some very specifics about what has to be done and have an enforcement mechanism with penalties. Phase 2 started last July, although 5 jurisdictions countywide are on different kind of delayed schedules for implementing different aspects of Phase 2, but that increases our total affected accounts to over 25,000. As for political pragmatism, we offered every jurisdiction in the county a chance to opt out of our ordinance. 2 jurisdictions have opted out of the ordinance completely, and you'll see a couple more who opted into phase 1 and have opted out of phase 2. But the two different shades of blue are those who are either fully opted in to phase 2 or opted in on some kind of a delayed schedule. Over 90% of the potentially covered accounts are participating in the ordinance. So phase 1 was your standard dry recyclables, paper, bottles, cans, corrugated. Phase 2 added food scraps and compostable paper. So what's required? Accounts have to have adequate recycling service for the quantities of materials generated at their location. They need to keep covered materials out of the garbage and garbage out of the recycling and the organics. And they need to do outreach at least once a year to all their employees, contractors, and tenants about how to use the services on site. Multifamily property owners have a little bit different set of enforcement rules than the commercial. They will not be cited if there's covered materials in the garbage or garbage in the recycling if they have complied with providing the service, the signage, and the education. In other words, they won't be penalized for the behavior of their tenants. We do have waivers available if there are space constraints where there just truly isn't room for additional bins, or if someone is a de minimis generator, they can prove they generate less than 10% by weight of covered materials, they can get a waiver. We're also accommodating non-franchised recycling arrangements such as self-haul, backhaul, and third-party recycling when allowed and properly documented. So an overview of our enforcement. An inspection by a government agency is considered a search, so this is a legal process with a lot of details. We use a routine inspection approach, which uses a mix of in-field inspections, and here you see Miguel, one of our inspectors, on site, as well as we review hauler data records for compliance. You'll see he's holding a tablet. We've built a CRM system with all the account data so they can see what the subscription levels, days of service are when they're on site. They can take pictures with the tablet if they see a lot of corrugated in the garbage bin, things to document any noted violations. The enforcement, again, the objective is compliance, not penalties. When there's a violation, we offer an opportunity to comply before any punitive measures are taken up to a citation. Enforcement is a partnership between our member agencies, the franchised haulers, the regulated accounts, business owners and managers, and our enforcement team. Our ordinance actually has zero tolerance for covered materials in the garbage. But as a practical matter, we have enforcement guidelines we use of thresholds of material where we will note violations. Here's my colleague, Officer Brian Matthews, some of you may know, modeling the latest in enforcement fashion. We've hired an Alameda County Sheriff, a retired annuitant, to train our inspectors and maintain the quality and legality of our inspections. We run background checks on the inspectors and monitor their work. The uniform's important as well. So we've about 15% of the accounts have received notifications. These are sent certified mail return receipt requested. That has proven to be a very effective attention-getting device. They're offered assistance by us as well as by the haulers in the cities usually. Only about 2.5% on a follow-up inspection have been given a warning. We haven't issued citations yet. We expect to start in April next month, towards the end of the month. We did not have an enforcement infrastructure in place. We don't do code enforcement the way cities and counties do. So we've been very deliberate and careful in building this, but we will start giving citations soon. We've done over 20,000 inspections, sent out 3,000 notifications. These are the registered certified mail, about 300 warnings. And again, citations will start next month, we expect. We've done a lot of other outreach to all the accounts, 3 mailings to service and billing addresses prior to the startup of enforcement. The cities and the haulers have done a lot of outreach as well. Our website, recyclingrulesac.org, has all the city-specific rules because it really is a lot of variation. We provided a lot of technical assistance, and the haulers in the cities as well. So I expect that in a little over a year from now, probably by mid-2016, we should have at that point some good metrics about enforcement and impacts on good stuff in the garbage. The benefits, we expect to potentially see another 100,000 tons of dry recyclables and 250,000 tons of organics hopefully moved from the commercial and multifamily garbage into the recycling and organics bins. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Tom?
So the two communities that have opted out, the two communities that have opted out, are they going to eventually have to comply?
There's an alternative standard that our recycling board passed a policy on, that if you're not participating in the ordinance, there are alternative standards you have to meet to remain eligible to get your the pass-through Measure D money that we distribute to all the jurisdictions, and so they have to meet a 50% subscription to commercial recycling services or spending a certain amount of effort to get to that point.
Monica?
Can you repeat what you said at the very end, the benefits you expect to see?
Well, based on the study in 2008, we expected up to an additional 100,000 tons of bottles, cans, paper, corrugated to be diverted from the commercial sector, and up to 250,000 additional tons of organics.
ARB.
Are there differences between the 341 standards, which say that you need to subscribe to a sorting system that is comparable to source separation, or are there disparities between what the state would require under allowing third-party recycling versus what you all would require?
We do have an allowance in the ordinance if you don't want to do source separation, if the materials are being collected and delivered to what we have certified as a high diversion mixed waste processing facility, that basically a facility that sorts so that less than 10% of the residual is good stuff. We don't have anyone, well, Waste Management for the dry rubbish commercial non-exclusive franchise accounts in Berkeley is the one facility they have been certified with their Davis Street MRF for a high diversion. And the other part of your question, Robin?
Just the disparity between the state standard and the county standard, that's all.
Well, most of the state standards are pretty fuzzy. That's one of the reasons we passed our local ordinance, was to have very specific requirements. So we're just attempting to add some specificity to it.
What would be the residual rate from the commercial recycling?
Well, they go to a variety of different MRFs and it varies. And I find that it's very hard to get credible numbers often.
One last question. Anastasia.
Customers who've had these inspections, some of them have complained that the contamination in the recycling is illegal dumping. What would you recommend for customers dealing with that kind of problem?
Talk to us. We're not unreasonable, and sometimes locking bins might be an answer to illegal dumping. I mean, undoubtedly that is probably true in some cases, and in other cases, one of the retired annuitant sheriffs who's helping us with our enforcement program was saying the classic claim of innocence by a suspect when a weapon or drugs are found in their pockets. Those aren't my pants. So we need to do some fact checking and see, but we'll be reasonable.
We actually have one more. Stand up and be loud.
Yeah, I am. Although I really admire Alameda County's efforts, I think it's great. I don't think this is replicable by other agencies because it must be really funding intensive.
The question was about the expense, and it is expensive. And we don't know, I'm hoping that over time that the unit cost will go down and that the impacts will be sustained as people learn to do the right thing and have the services they need. We're spending about $1 million of hard costs and $1 million of staffing costs a year on this implementation effort right now.
Thank you.